The whiskey you show up with at Christmas tells everyone in that room exactly how much thought you put into the people you claim to love. And most people are failing this test spectacularly. Here's the reality. Nearly 30% of all annual spirit sales in the entire country happen between October and December. 60% of Americans who bought alcohol during the holidays did so specifically to give it as a gift. That means millions of people are walking into liquor stores every single holiday season, grabbing the most recognizable bottle on the shelf and handing it over like they did something thoughtful. They did not. They grabbed a vibe. And whiskey people, the people who actually care about what's in the glass, they know the difference the second they unwrap it. So before you head out this year and repeat the same mistake, let's go through the 7 whiskey gifts that silently communicate, "I didn't really try." And then the 7 bottles that will genuinely impress the person you're buying for, without necessarily spending more money. Starting with the ones to avoid. Jack Daniel's Old No. 7. The king of American bar shelves. The bottle everyone recognizes. And here's what nobody tells you at the store. Jack Daniel's is not even a bourbon. It's a Tennessee whiskey, which means it goes through a charcoal filtering step called the Lincoln County process before it ever touches a barrel. Not a complaint, just context. The actual liquid inside that iconic square bottle retails at around $25 to $30. But the whiskey itself is built to be mixed, not sipped and appreciated. When whiskey reviewers sit down with it neat, the notes they keep landing on are thin grain, a little sweet, a little smoke from the charcoal, and then nothing much. It finishes fast. It disappears. You're essentially gifting someone a mixer dressed up in a brand they recognize from a fraternity basement. The bottle says Tennessee Cool. The whiskey says gas station grab. Crown Royal Standard. This one pulled off something clever from a marketing standpoint. It convinced an entire country that the purple felt bag it comes in is the actual gift. The whiskey inside costs around $30. It's owned by Diageo. And in blind tasting after blind tasting, it consistently lands at the bottom of the pack. One reviewer put it perfectly. It tastes like filtered water is smooth, meaning it has zero offensive qualities, which sounds like a compliment until you realize it also has zero interesting qualities. No depth, no character, nothing that makes the person sipping it stop and think, huh, what is that? The bag. That's what you're paying for, the bag. Now here's one that goes beyond just being a bad gift. It actually has a legal problem attached to it. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. The full-size bottles you see on shelves are technically a flavored liqueur, sitting at 33% ABV, not true whiskey. But the mini bottles, the little airplane-sized ones people love to stuff into stockings and tape to Christmas cards, those are something even more deceptive. In 2023, a class action lawsuit was filed, Ana Marquez versus Fireball, over the fact that the mini bottles contain no whiskey whatsoever. None. They're malt liquor flavored with natural whiskey flavor. Legally not whiskey. So if you tape one of those to your Christmas card this year thinking it's a cute whiskey gift, you're technically gifting someone a malt liquor novelty. The lawsuit exists. The label deception is documented. Gifting Fireball says you treat whiskey like a gag item, and the person receiving it who knows their stuff is going to remember that. Johnnie Walker Red Label. Diageo's own team has basically admitted that Red Label was engineered for high-energy environments, loud bars, heavy mixers, situations where the whiskey itself is almost beside the point. At $25 to $30 a bottle, it's the bottom rung of the Johnnie Walker ladder, and it tastes like it. Reviewers have called it as memorable as my backup pen at work. The blending strips away complexity in favor of accessibility, a perfectly legitimate thing to do for a cocktail whiskey. But it makes for a profoundly uninspiring gift. The frustrating part, for literally $10 more, Johnnie Walker Black is dramatically better. Richer, smokier, more layered. But red is the one people recognize. So red is the one that keeps getting wrapped up and handed over every December like it means something. Jim Beam White Label. The world's best-selling bourbon by volume, 17.5 million cases sold in 2024 alone. That number tells you everything about what it's built to do. High-volume production, designed to sit comfortably in a mixed drink without drawing attention to itself. Reviewers describe it as thin, immature, generically sweet like simple syrup with nothing to follow it. It's the bourbon equivalent of a McDonald's gift card. Technically useful, completely impersonal. Nobody unwraps a bottle of Jim Beam White and thinks someone really considered them. If anything, they wonder if you grabbed it off a display at Walgreens on the way over. Bullite Bourbon a little different from the others because the whiskey itself isn't terrible. High rye mash bill, some spice, and for years it carried a strong reputation with the cocktail crowd. But two things happened. First, bartenders gave it closer scrutiny and the verdict shifted. More than a few described it as harsh and unbalanced, particularly for sipping. Second, and far more damaging, Tom Bulight's own daughter came forward publicly with allegations of abuse and homophobia against her father. The backlash was immediate. Bars across America pulled it. Some auctioned off their remaining inventory to charity. The story was covered widely. So when you hand someone a bottle of Bulight this Christmas, you're either signaling that you haven't read the news or that you did and didn't care enough to choose something else. Neither of those is a good look. Jameson Standard. The Universal Gateway, Irish whiskey. Triple distilled, blended, soft, easy, absolutely everywhere. Around $28 to $32 a bottle. Nothing wrong with Jameson as a whiskey. It does exactly what it promises, which is to cause zero offense and go down without a fight. The problem with gifting it is the same problem as Crown Royal. When reviewers sit with it seriously, they find almost no mid-palate complexity. Smooth the way a glass of water is smooth. Nothing sharp, nothing surprising, nothing that rewards attention. Handing over standard Jameson as a Christmas whiskey gift translates pretty directly to, I typed Irish whiskey gift into Google and clicked the first result. It says you found a category and stopped thinking. Now, the bottles that actually land. Four Roses single barrel, around $50. Here's what sets this one apart before you even open it. Four Roses runs 10 distinct bourbon recipes. Different yeast strains, different mash bills, different flavor profiles. A single barrel release pulls from one of those 10 recipes. One specific barrel, bottled at 100 proof. That's 7 to 9 years of aging showing up at full strength with nothing diluted down. Pear and floral spice up front, then maple caramel, and a finish that lingers and rewards a second sip. Any bourbon enthusiast who unwraps this knows immediately that you weren't just grabbing something recognizable. You knew what you were buying. That reads as genuine respect. Michter's US 1, small batch bourbon, $45. The context that makes this gift means something. Michter's was named the world's most admired whiskey brand for the third consecutive year in 2025. Not most admired American whiskey. Most admired whiskey in the world. No brand has ever done that 3 times running. Each batch is capped at a maximum of 20 barrels. The whiskey comes out at 45.7% ABV, and what you get in the glass is rich caramel, vanilla, dried fruit, and just enough oak to give it structure without overpowering the sweeter notes. It feels like a $70 bottle. The person who gets this, who knows their whiskey, is going to ask where you found it. That's exactly the reaction you want. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, around $60 to $70. Whiskey Advocate named this their 2025 Whiskey of the Year. The #1 whiskey in the world according to one of the most respected publications in the industry. And it costs less than most Jack Daniel's gift sets. Let that sit for a second. 12 years in the barrel, bottled at cask strength, somewhere between 120 and 130 proof. No added water, no chill filtration. You are getting the whiskey exactly as it came out of the barrel, with nothing removed and nothing added. Bold, layered, and genuinely complex. The kind of bottle that makes whiskey drinkers pause mid-sip and pay attention. Gifting this says you follow the bourbon world seriously enough to know what just won the top prize. Redbreast 12-year single pot still Irish whiskey. $50 to $65. If the person you're buying for has a bottle of Jameson on their shelf and considers themselves an Irish whiskey fan, this is the gift that moves them to the next level. Redbreast is the largest selling single pot still Irish whiskey in the world. Triple distilled, then aged in a combination of bourbon barrels and Oloroso sherry casks. What comes out is completely different from the standard Irish blended category. A distinctive oily, nutty texture. Dried citrus peel, fresh ginger, stewed fruit, and a finish that's genuinely long and warming. The gap between standard Jameson and Redbreast 12 is not subtle. It's the difference between a good house wine and the bottle the sommelier actually drinks off the clock. Glenfarclas 12-year single malt scotch. $45 to $55. Family owned since 1865. One family, 6 generations, same site in Speyside, Scotland. What separates Glenfarclas from most scotch at this price? They never add artificial coloring, and every single expression is aged in sherry casks. No exceptions. Rich dried fruit, dark Christmas cake spice, a little nuttiness, and a warmth that feels genuinely festive in a way that's almost built for December gifting. Among single malt enthusiasts in America, Glenfarclas is the insider's pick, the bottle that tells the room you went deeper than the obvious shelf. The family ownership story alone gives the recipients something to share when they open it. Sweetens Cove, Tennessee Blended Bourbon, $59, 93 points from Whiskey Advocate in 2025. A conversation starter before it gets poured. Co-founded by Peyton Manning, and before you roll your eyes at the celebrity angle, the whiskey backs it up. The tasting notes read like someone having fun. Blueberry pancakes, cinnamon, peanut butter and jelly, fresh strawberry, finishing on toasted sugar and maple wood. That maple wood finish is a genuine innovation in American whiskey. Not a gimmick, but a different approach to finishing that produces something you can't quite place until someone tells you what it is. For a sports household, for a dad who likes bourbon, for anyone who appreciates a bottle that goes its own direction and pulls it off, this one hits every note. Bernheim Original Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey, around $67. 95 points from Whiskey Advocate in 2025. What makes this a genuinely special gift? Bernheim is the only straight wheat whiskey produced by a major American distillery. Evan Hill has been making it for decades, and the barrel-proof version is something serious American whiskey collectors actively seek out. Wheat as the primary grain gives you something softer and sweeter than a rye-heavy bourbon. But with cask-strength ABV pushing the intensity, what you actually get is dark chocolate, vanilla cream, Rolo candies, and a long cinnamon finish. Gifting this tells the person in your life who's serious about American whiskey that you know the landscape well enough to find something outside the usual categories. That's a quietly impressive signal. Here's what ties all 7 of the bottles worth buying together. None of them cost dramatically more than what they replaced. Michter's at $45 carries the world's most admired label and feels like a $70 bottle. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof at $65 just won the top prize in the industry and costs less than most gift sets built around Jack Daniels. Four Roses Single Barrel at $50 is only $10 to $15 more than Bullet Bourbon. The gap in what these bottles say about you as a gift giver is enormous. The gap in price is almost nothing. Whiskey gifting isn't really about whiskey, it's about whether you paid attention, whether the label you picked tells the person receiving it that you thought about their specific taste, or whether you just grabbed the first recognizable thing on the shelf. The bottles on the bad list earned their shelf space from marketing, not from what's inside. The bottles on the good list earned their reputation from what's actually in the glass. So here's what I want to know. Drop it in the comments right now. What's the worst whiskey you've ever received as a gift? And did you actually say anything to the person who gave it to you? Because that is a conversation I want to read. If this helped you avoid a holiday mistake this year, hit the like button and share it with someone who's about to wrap up a purple felt bag in good conscience. And if you want to get into the real depth of American whiskey, the distilleries worth knowing, the bottles worth hunting, and the ones the industry quietly hopes you skip in favor of their premium shelf, make sure you're subscribed, because that's exactly where we're headed next.